All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to my presentation. Today, I will be discussing the battery of assessment. And the battery of assessment is composed of three different parts, and we'll talk about all of them. It's composed of our reading interest inventory, core vocabulary assessment, and qualitative reading inventory. So, who am I? Well, my name is Mr. T. My real name is Tristan. I'm a young teacher with plenty of aspirations both within education and outside of it. Of course, I seek to be a great teacher for any child that may encounter me or be in my classroom, and I hope that I have been a great teacher so far. But I also enjoy working on car interiors and just cars in general outside of the education system. That's kind of where I find my hobbies lying. I do like to read books though, but I'm mostly into movies about historical wars. And I also do have a baby girl as well. Her name is Ayana, and at the time she was only 6 months. Now she's 8 months. Now, which student will we be talking about today? Our student, for privacy reasons, we'll be calling them by JS. It's an 11th grade student, 16 years old, who is physically impaired and an ESC student. And not because of their physical impairment, but because of other exceptionalities. So let's talk about it. What is a reading interest inventory? Well, a reading interest inventory is a survey that questions students on their likes, interests, wishes, and just more. They tell us different topics that the student may enjoy and what they would like to do with their time. Teachers need to be able to understand their student to provide a targeted and differentiated education. Because the reason why this is important is because students are motivated by their interest. And when you involve their interest in the classroom, they're more likely to listen to what you're saying, understand what you're saying, and enjoy what you're saying. This test is normally administered in an informal setting where the teacher asks students to answer prompts about their interest, and the teacher just records their answers on a provided sheet. An example of JS's reading inventory. You can take a look here. You can see that he has certain things that he does like to see, movies and TVs. His favorite movie is Back to the Future, and the favorite TV show is Glee. Ooh. We also see that he's into music and dancing. So we see that JS is pretty creative as a person. We know that he's really, really creative. So the results that we can see for the reading interest inventory tell us very specific data for JS. We see that JS is very involved with theatrical themes and his interests aligned with performance and drama-based work. We also see that not only does JS like to watch these things, he also enjoys participating and experiencing them. From the topics that he highlighted as his favorites, to the movies and TV shows he watches, to even the people that he considers heroes, such as Michael Jackson, we see traces of performance arts and theater. This is great information, as it shows a clear path that can be established within his education. While developing instruction for JS, we now know that the focal point should be based on stimulating his creativity. This can be done with activities that require drawing, or creating a story, or possibly the most effective, activities that incorporate role-playing. We can assume that JS has strengths in visual and kinetic learning styles due to his interest. We can also use this to slightly adjust any lecture or instruction given to him, and include additions of entertaining videos that may have classical themes or dramatic themes to them and such. Now, another form of assessment involved is a core vocabulary screening. The core vocabulary screening assesses a child's ability to identify and use words commonly found in their language. This tells us whether students know enough vocabulary to learn using grade-level text, books, and content, which is extremely important as teachers must modify their instruction to an appropriate level that the child can understand. Students are given a list of core words, and they must read the words independently. Then, they are tasked with selecting the closest synonym to the words given. This will tell us whether they know the definition or not. An example of JS's core vocabulary screening. You can see some of the words here. They have some pretty advanced words, as this is in the 8th grade vocabulary form. And so the results of the core vocabulary screening for JS came back showing a strong knowledge of vocabulary. This may be attributed to their interest in theater and other story-based concepts. Nonetheless, JS provided 26 correct answers out of the 30 questions posed. As this is an 8th grade level vocabulary test, due to a perceived level from class participation and comprehension, he did well and beyond expectations, way beyond expectations. With only one answer incorrect and 3 questions simply unanswered due to a lack of context to even give a guess, he showcased that he can succeed at the 8th grade level in regard to vocabulary. As far as instructions go, I would consider JS to be ready for a slightly higher level reading. He has shown near mastery for vocabulary and should be more than capable of managing an introduction into higher level vocabulary. This can be done by testing what he may already know, like finding a 9th or 10th grade level book, a drama piece that utilizes proper vocabulary, or any other things that may pique his interest. Based on his comprehension of the book and words used in context, we can decide whether he really is capable of completing work at that level, or if he should be eased into it. Now, some activities that can help develop JS in regard to his strengths can be our word treasure hunt. In this word treasure hunt, students will be shown a set of new vocabulary words. They will have to search around the room for cards that have a picture on one side and the word on the other side. If this is being done at home, it can be done at the school or at home. The parent or the teacher should be giving verbal guidance. And this verbal guidance should be telling the child what they are looking for or where it can be used. These kind of hints and clues can help them lead them towards where they need to go to find the word. After the clues, when found, the word meaning should be discussed, and the guardian or the teacher should give an example of a sentence it can be used in. It would be best and most beneficial if the child can follow up with their own sentence. Another activity would be storytelling with pictures, in which the students will be given a large amount of pictures and a word bank of new vocabulary words. The students would then take turns with the teacher or the parent, because this can be done at home, in creating a story, adding more to the story based on a picture that they grab. The story should also implement the use of vocabulary words that are in a word bank. If the child does not understand what a word means, but they want to use it, the teacher can explain what it means, and if they don't know, they don't have to use it. Now, going on to another form of assessment, this is a collection of assessments. It's not just one. And this is our qualitative reading inventory. This is a really big one, as this can help the teachers really dig deep into where the child's skills and where their ability is actually located and where it can be headed. It follows up on all the previous assessments, and it can help us do this. So this assessment is done in order to gather information on the student's reading comprehension, word recognition, word fluency, and even more. It's important for teacher analysis, as I said, on the student's learning level. And the teacher must be aware of what level the student is at so that they can properly differentiate or simply provide the correct and appropriate education for that child. It's administered in a face-to-face setting where the child will complete readings on their own or word identifications on their own, and the teacher will listen and record the data on templates. Before we start the real assessments, we do a word recognition list. In our word recognition list, the students are provided with a list of words, as you can see here, and then they are judged based on whether they recognize the word immediately or whether they needed to take some time to identify the word, if they can identify it at all. As we can see, JS did pretty well for a 6th grade word list. With 19 out of 20 accuracy, he showed that he is at an independent level. This is near mastery, as he's able to identify the words at this level. And so we know that we will now test him on higher level than 6th grade, which would be upper middle level, just to see where he's truly at. So when we carry on our future assessments in the qualitative reading inventory, we will be using tests that are one level higher than where he is at with this word recognition list. So upper middle level. An activity that can help with word recognition for JS would likely be charades with vocabulary. And with this charades, the students pick a word and act on it while the other students guess. The list of words should be all vocabulary words. And this can be done with index cards with the word on one side and a brief definition on the other side for review. For non-verbal learners, you can use AAC to choose words and let the peers act them out. Another activity that can be done is echo reading, where you would choose, the teacher or the parent would choose short passages with target words. All of them would read the passage together multiple times, emphasizing sight words that appear in the passage. Now, after that, we introduce the text and we assess the child on their background knowledge of the text. Now, the background assessment for this text, it was basically based on concepts that would be introduced into the text. It wasn't necessarily about a complete formulation of knowledge, but what kind of vocabulary may be important, and would the student have any idea of what that vocabulary means. Background knowledge refers to any information or skills that a child may have that is relevant to the current text. And just for preposition, JS did very well on his assessment, scoring 9 out of 12 possible points. And as this is over 55%, we can see that he is at least somewhat familiar with concepts that will be within the text. And here's his assessment. It may be hard to see, but some of the questions we're asking kind of vocabulary, like what is a mentor? Or what is a creed? And based on his answers, we see that he might not have the complete understanding and knowledge for what a creed is, but he does know what a mentor is. And it may not be a picture-perfect definition that's provided, but it's definitely along those lines, and he can definitely understand it. Then comes the miscue analysis. So this assessment records data on a student's reading fluency. It monitors mistakes made on specific words while reading and details common or minor issues that can occur. This is done while the child is reading the passage, and it doesn't have to be the first time, but it's actually beneficial to do this while the child is reading it for the second time. However, it can be done on the first go of reading the passage. This is very important as it provides pertinent information on what a student's skills are regarding reading. Do they make minor mistakes, or do they make meaning-changing mistakes that can alter their comprehension and prevent them from truly understanding what they're reading? This is important because the teacher needs to know whether a child can actually understand that text and that information, and whether it's something that they can target and work on and develop the child into avoiding those mistakes, or if it's something that we have to completely wrap around and restart to try and get at. Some examples of his miscue analysis. As you can see, there are a few items where he made mistakes, but as you can see, SC stands for self-correction, meaning he caught his mistake and he was able to fix it. So we do not actually count those as miscues because he did end up correctly saying it. And here's a test sheet with the data that was recorded from his miscue analysis. Now let's get into it. So based on the results, we know that JS recorded 24 total miscues, which places him in an instructional level for upper middle level reading, which is actually on the lower end or the higher end of instructional level, because the instructional level ranges from 18 to 84 miscues. So he wasn't anywhere near that max amount of miscues that would put him in a dangerous or a kind of challenging situation. His words per minute is 177, and his words correct per minute is 172. Now, I will say that in regard to his specific age group, as he is 16 years old, his words per minute is below average. But when compared to the norm at the level that we're testing him, as we know that this is the level that he's building on, then he's around that kind of average level for an upper middle school level child or that age group that may be reading, on both his words per minute and words correct per minute. Also, when we're looking at our assessment, there's different markings. As you can see, this isn't random scribbles or gibberish. There are actually specific markings that we use that are representing specific mistakes that are being made, so that we can identify the common miscues or anything that are worthy of notice. So as you can see, some words are circled, Circle would mean things like he omitted the word and he just either skipped it, didn't see it, or just flat out chose not to say it. And then after the miscue analysis, meaning that the child has read the passage at least one time, we can do an active think aloud. In the think aloud, the students are expected to voice their thoughts at periodic intervals of the text. The teacher would record their answer, and at the end there's a checklist associated with this portion of assessment that discusses what aspects of understanding the student shows. This is important because as you stop them at certain intervals and you ask them what do they think, the teacher can see where the child's focus or attention is within the story and whether he's actually going along the story, getting the information, and actually choosing information that is relevant to the passage. We can also see here whether he can relate to the passage, which is, important as we talk about their interest and things like that. So an example of his think aloud, we see certain comments that he makes where he points out that the main character, who is a teacher extraordinaire, he realizes very early on in the passage that the character must be a good teacher because he comes from a family of teachers. So we can see that that is a justification made as he's reading through the passage. And we can see furthermore that he does his sort of relating it to personal experiences or personal thoughts and opinions, such as how he loves sports and how the teacher using items that relate to sports to pull students may have even worked on him. And then we can also see that he asks a lot of questions about what he doesn't understand about why something may have occurred in the passage. Alright, and so as we can see from these results, JS is actually very engaged with the reading, even though it doesn't have anything to do with theater or things that that were attributed to his reading interest inventory. We see that he's actually still very engaged with the reading. And we see this based on the kind of questions he was asking, such as why did the main character's mother do what she did, and whether or not the main character should have went through a situation that he did or not. And there are specific things that we can see on the assessment itself. At the end, not sure if you got a good look, the checklist would be to the right of this paper here. Asking questions such as, does he offer relevant comments? Does he identify with the text personally? Does he draw inferences or make valid inferences based on the text? And as we look through that checklist, we know that it does let us know that JS had a strong understanding of the text while reading. He was asking questions that were relevant. He was appropriately showing what he was taking from the text, meaning he was specifically using small quotes, a couple words or maybe phrase that he took from the text when he asked these questions or made comments. And so we know that he genuinely did understand at least a little bit what he was reading as he read it. An activity that can boost think aloud aspects and skill sets would be think aloud tag, in which students read a shared passage aloud and stop to comment at certain intervals. Now, another section that is a part of our qualitative reading inventory is our retelling aspect. The retelling aspect of the QRI assesses a student's ability to repeat a story that they just read, which is important because it monitors their retention ability while reading. This is very important because if a child is not able to remember a story that they read, they are more than likely not going to be able to comprehend or answer follow-up questions about that story. So with this retelling aspect of the QRI, there are certain key points that are brought up to their attention. So we receive a paper sheet that gives us the key points, and as we ask the child to tell us what he remembers from the story, we'll check off the key points that the child his answers can be attributed to. And as we see on this sheet here, it goes by goal to events to resolution. And there are more than a few check marks, meaning he did a pretty decent job at retelling the story. So from the results, we can see that JS is actually able to recall a good amount of the story. While he does miss certain details, they're usually not key aspects, such as what did the mother say or how did the mother feel about it, Or why did he move to his hometown originally? These can be good details, but they're not key details as to what led the main character, Jaime, to their position in life. He did, however, successfully recall the setting and the character, and the conflict, and the resolution. While there is room for improvement on the retelling end that can center around building greater retention skills and activities, we can see that he has that skill set available, and it may not excel at that skill set, but he does possess the skill set needed to do so. Now, certain activities that can help him build on this would be a matching game, where students will be tasked with matching characters to actions or settings. This can be done with printed cards or even on the tablet if provided. And for the printed cards, you can also use index cards for specific passages from the text, meaning you can take a sentence or two from the text and have picture references that the students can then match and attribute to the cards, or pictures of a character or an emotion that a character was feeling in the text or may have been feeling in the passage, and seeing if the child can match those up correctly. Another activity would be acted out reading, in which the teacher and the student would act out parts of the story using props or puppets. This would help kinesthetic learners remember what happened because they are actively doing it, and they are actively portraying the concepts within the passage. You can pause students at certain intervals and have them copy an action that you are doing, you as in the teacher or the parent, or you can ask them to do their own actions that they understood from the passage. So whatever they remember or whatever they think about the passage and received from the passage, we can ask them to act it out, such as character emotions or character feelings. Now, one of the main aspects of our qualitative reading inventory is the comprehension portion of the assessment. After the reading, the students are given comprehension questions that test whether they remember and understand, or what they remember and understand from the events in the passage. It also asks questions about the meaning and purpose behind text. So it gets into more abstract details about the passage to see if the child is only able to understand what's on the paper, or if he's able to take a step back and see the bigger picture behind the passage. This is very important, as it provides a picture for the student as to what level content the child can actually understand and learn from. Because learning goes farther than reading something and remembering it, but understanding and comprehension kind of gives that child that ability to use the information that they learned or apply it to another situation. So comprehension is very important. And as we can see, there were 10 questions asked, and he did provide some answers. Not all of them were very specific, but some of them were. And so when we first did this test, we did it with a no look back clause, meaning he had to answer the questions as to the best of his ability based on what he did remember from the text. Looking at the results, we see that in an attempt where there was no looking back, JS scored 6 out of 10, which does place him at the frustration level, which is the lowest level for this. However, in a reattempt, he was allowed to look back, and he scored 8 out of 10, which is an instructional level. So not the highest, but a little level below that. Now, the reason why I would say he is not necessarily at a severe risk for being placed at the frustration level is because the frustration level encompasses 0 to 6 correct answers, while the instructional level begins at 7, meaning he's right on that little bridge between frustration and instructional, and with a little help, or maybe with just one more specific detail, he would have been able to push himself over into that instructional level, meaning that the results do show and indicate that he is still able to understand the text at a relatively reasonable level. Activities that can help boost comprehension for any student, but specifically with JS, would be a question cube, in which case the teacher would create a cube spinner with different prompts and have the students get into small groups of 3 and 4. You would then let them take turns spinning the cube until all questions have been answered. And you can ask certain questions such as, what is the purpose of the text? Or why did the main character do this? Or how did the main character respond to the original conflict? There's many different things that you can ask that can provide an overall picture on the passage and what it truly means. Another activity that you can do is, this is not necessarily a real name, but somebody wanted, but so then. And this acronym, it can be done as a graphic organizer, and this can be done individually or in a group setting. It may work best in a group setting, as this would help students summarize fiction pieces and even non-fiction pieces. The teacher should break down story elements into its specific parts, which is somebody, what are the characters, maybe the main character, wanted, which are the goal, what did they want, what did they desire, what did they chase after, but, which represents our conflict, meaning what problem arose that stopped them from chasing the goal or put them in a bad position. So, which is our resolution, and this refers to not necessarily the end of a story, but how a character responded to the conflict and how they dealt with their problem. And then the outcome, which would be the actual ending of the story, meaning what was the ending. So how did the character come out? How did the character end the story? Or what are they left with? These activities can easily help boost comprehension in a fun way. All of the activities that I am suggesting are kind of fun activities that can engage the student and leave them with a positive learning experience. As they grow that knowledge, they are still having fun and enjoying it, which can boost retention even. So we went through pretty much most of the assessments. We went through all of the assessments covered in our qualitative reading inventory, our reading interest inventory, and our core vocabulary assessment. And we know that we use all of these assessments as one. We call it a battery of assessments. We use all of these assessments in one package, and we use it to truly understand our student. There's a lot of information and a lot of effort that goes into analyzing a student to give them the best and the highest quality education that they can receive. And this is just some of those ways that we do that. Thank you for watching, and I hope it was informational and that you enjoyed.